Okay, here's one. I'm going to do a quick tutorial on drawing cars in perspective. Though probably, let's start this off with talking about what a car is not. I've seen a lot of people do is that they will draw something like a semicircle, maybe put some space between the tires, I think that's a car, except no, this is not a car. At least not yet. You don't know what's going to happen with these little concept cars. The first thing about drawing any car is to understand the basic shapes that make them up. And to that end, this isn't completely wrong, but it does need some fine-tuning. It's important to know what the basic shapes of a vehicle, really any vehicle. These shapes are based on the inner framework here. No different from our basic, well, you haven't done a basic shape skeleton yet, but you'll get there next semester. Is that cars generally have a rectangular shape to them. A trapezoid up top, this makes up the windshield area, and just the general canopy. So we got body, we got canopy, and then we have to consider, of course, the wheels. Now, usually the wheels will set up like so, with one close to the engine, leave space here, because this is where our actual car doors will come into play. And then one section for the wheels here before coming to the back. So this is just your basic car shapes. Obviously, the wheels are circles. But then you have to consider everything else, such as rearview mirrors, doors, and the doors never go all the way to the bottom. It's always cut into the car. And keep in mind, this is really just for a four-door sedan. And keep in mind, this is a very classic kind of body style. They don't really do this as much anymore. That's why this is our starting point. If you look at actual cars, obviously they're all made up of curves. And that's done because this type of body style, which was normal when I was a kid, is not conducive to car construction nowadays. Your car can't just be completely flat-nosed because we have to consider impact. If all cars were still shaped like this, the survival rate of crashes would actually go down. Because with a curved body, the way the car is set up, it kind of collapses in itself and stops force from traveling directly into you and creating this sort of whiplash that breaks necks. Now, it's not perfect, obviously, but for your average crash, the old cars can't keep the same level of safety as the newer ones. So instead, let's take our concept from up here and just merge these two together. And the way they can do this is to set up that rounded canopy and then expand it forward. You're actually more likely to get something that's closer to an actual proper car shape that way. But rather than worry about all these profile views, let's look at this in terms of perspective. I'm not going to pull any pictures of actual cars for this. This is just a nice little basic outline on how to do it. So you want to start with this rectangular prism here. As we go along, we're just going to take off and smooth out edges. So going from original here, we're going to use a trapezoid. We have it roughly in the center. I say once again, this is a rough outline. Obviously, your cars will be different depending on what model you choose. We'll block in where our tires go, or wheels rather. Remember, due to perspective, your back wheel is going to appear smaller. Now, once we have this point, then we start some of our rounding here. Take off some of those edges. Because remember, the more curves we have, it also helps the car be more aerodynamic. So all I'm doing here is just I'm rounding out all the edges. Don't be afraid of adding more mass to the car if need be. Headlights, you generally want to keep two sets of lights on both sides, one for the headlights themselves and one for the high beams. Because we have a lot of cars have a grill of some sort up here. Helps the engine breathe. Can't forget our mirrors. Okay, so let's zoom in here. So here's our car, all nice and in perspective. And then, of course, we put in our wheels. Where it's in perspective, so we are using ellipses. Or ellipticals. There we go. I can't in fact speak English. There you have it, a car in perspective. Now, before we log out here, let's also try doing this. We actually have our guidelines set up. Once again, set the vectors. You don't have to set up exactly like this. It's just for an example. Now, understand you may have to use more vectors than you would normally like to do, because there are a lot of little pieces, parts to cars that you have to line up. So I am going to use this section here. And for something like this, I think I'm going to draw the back of the car, so this actually works out perfectly. We have our basic shapes down. So let's start by putting out our rear window here. In this case, I worry about all the curves after the fact. Blocking the windows. Be positioned for our tires. Okay. Now, obviously, this looks like a total mess, but let's start getting into the curving part. Now, some cars have a lot more distinct shapes, so remember, this serves as a good outline, but actually use some real reference material. Google image search is your friend. Take out the space for our tires. Let's forget the bumper here. because this part is above the horizon line, we should be able to see some of the roof or ceiling inside the car itself. Yeah, there we go. Not the neatest car drawn today. But it works we need to do. Now tomorrow you come into class, or actually this is being uploaded for tomorrow. We're going to do a little exercise with paint in terms of using the wash method. And you'll want to use that to really try and capture the metallic nature of color. Well, plastic metallic-y nature. Cars aren't built like the way they used to be. That's actually a really good thing. We'll practice more on this tomorrow, and we'll go into how to color the actual metal. And that I may see if I can try to just record a little bit myself so you can see the use of wash method. Alright, with that, I will leave it to it. Remember, always rely on reference material. Photos on your phone, photos on your computer. It helps to look it up because then you have to go through the kind of guesstimation phase that I had to do it here.